What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, we are looking back at Crash Team Rumble. I thought this would be timely, and I try to make a lot of these videos timely. Look, I like looking back. The last video we did was Dragon Ball Budokai 1, 22 years old. It's okay to look back, I think, 9 months from now because, well, we're actually saying goodbye to another game. Now, there might be more to this, like, down the line, because here's the deal, right? Technically, is this game dead? No, the game is not dead. The servers are up. You can still play it. The battle pass, the floodgates have been open. You can unlock everything. There's no paying. There's no nothing, right? But at the same time, there was abandonment, okay? It's gone. It's the studio. Now, we'll talk about this as this video goes, but they're not around, and they're not going to be around, okay? So I do like to make, like, RIP type videos. We talked about things like Knockout City or Spec Ops The Line or, Battlefield, Bad Company 2. I like to do these when games get sunsetted or they get murdered, tragically or whatever. And this one, I mean, this is a very, I would say, unique situation. I don't know how many times we've had something like this happen, and I'm really excited to talk to you, all about it in this video. So really quickly, if you're new to the channel, if you like this stuff, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We do 1 to 2 videos a week, and we're doing really, really well. I'm really appreciative of all the support you guys have shown. And again, let's get into this one. So, all right, you have the return of the Bandicoot, right? Crash was saved, or the Bandicoot. I think the tagline was "We saved the Bandicoot," right? That was a big thing going online. We get them back. We get the Insane Trilogy. We get It's About Time. Awesome name. And I also think how it's built is really good. It might not be like the perfect Crash game. It might not be up there with some of the, the best ones in the series, but I think the 4th game is extremely, extremely good. So we're riding high. We even have Team Racing, getting a remake. All good. Then all of a sudden we say, okay, what's next for Crash Bandicoot? It's a live service game, of course. Now, I've been on record, and if you've watched my other channels, right, this is one of 3. The other ones are more, current day games that are out. The thing I was saying forever about Crash Team Rumble is actually, well, let's fast forward to when the game actually came out. I believe this is a great game. I believe this is one of the greatest live service games that nobody has ever played. And what I mean by that, again, is a very unique situation. Crash Bandicoot shouldn't work in fact, it is a real not good idea, I think, to make Crash Bandicoot a live service game. Now, ultimately, that is true. This game is dead. This game didn't last 1 year. Now, there were other circumstances, right? Activision Blizzard gets bought. Toys for Bob, they have to lay off half their team, and we're wondering, is Microsoft shutting them down? Like, what in God's name is happening? Then it's like, okay, they're working from home. Again, what in God's name is happening? Oh, they're going independent. They literally left Activision. They literally left Microsoft. Now, I think that is a really good move, and I actually have a lot of confidence in the future of that studio. I think they're going to be good, whether they want to make Crash or Spyro and work with Microsoft on that. Maybe you want to take a stab at a Sly Cooper. I've seen that rumor around. That would be phenomenal, right? Or you can make your own game. Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. But I have a lot of confidence. So, granted, it wasn't the most steady 1 year or 9 months that they've ever had and that we've ever had. But this game, is this too harsh? Because I actually have been a big supporter of this game since freaking launch day. This game was a disaster. This game was a massive failure. And I don't think that's all that aggressive, especially, and maybe I'm just boosting my own ego. I'm looking at it from the point of view that I actually think this game works. It shouldn't work. I would never have done this. Never. If I pitched this, I would have asked you to fire me, okay? I don't think this was the right move, and ultimately, I do think I think that's the right mindset. The game didn't necessarily work. I don't think it made money. I think if you made another Crash Bandicoot game or a Spyro game, you would have sold more, it would have been more popular and more loved. I really believe all of those things. But for what it's worth, the game rocks. The game, weirdly, is very, very fun. And leading into this game, I kind of sensed it. I was like, you know what? The things they're showing looks pretty okay. I think there was a beta or an alpha. It was something you could play it early. I did. And I was like, you know what? This game is really good. Then it comes out. It opens up. And I think the one thing very much limiting it was the game modes. There was one. It's not even modes, plural. It's mode, singular. There was just one freaking game mode. So that, I think, was a really big issue. They obviously put everything into it. But you know what? The characters, again, do I want to play as Crash in this setting? Dingo Dial, all this stuff? No, I don't think I do. But it actually worked really well, and it actually was a blast. These characters, I thought, felt very unique. They kept saying this leading into the game, and I never really bought into it until the game came out. They really made them, like, if you imagine them in the Crash universe, whether we've played as them before or not, right? Like playing as Cortex or playing as, or even, they introduced Cat-Bat, right? A new character. So you have all these characters, some we've played, some we haven't. They really did make their moveset that we're used to work in this kind of a team versus team, almost not like battle royale, but this, and they did have trouble, and I'm having trouble as well. They did have trouble describing what this game was. I remember that leading into the game as well, where it's like, there's really no genre that this fits perfectly in. You can maybe say Overwatch, you can say a couple, it's clearly a live service game. Now you pay for it, right? Day one, you pay for it, but then it continues to live on. But nailing exactly the type of game that this is, it's actually quite difficult. So I actually would give them massive praise for, again, now, like, not everybody took to it. In fact, nobody took to it from what it looks like. And I'm going to talk about this, like, why do I keep saying it like that? We'll get there. But while it wasn't very popular, I think they nailed it. I think for what it was and what they pitched, it was exactly that. It was a lot of fun. I found myself playing it daily. I found myself becoming a god at it and doing, especially as Coco. Thought she was an incredible character, but a lot of these characters were incredible. And I had a blast. And I stuck with this game for months, which is kind of odd for me because normally live service games normally is a no. I give them tries, but I mean, maybe they last a week or two, right? Like, I'm not playing them for months. If I'm playing a game for months, I can't be lying. I mean, I'm not BSing. Like, I truly like it for some reason. Otherwise, I wouldn't still be doing it that long. So the game I thought was great. The updates, they definitely did take a while, and switching up the formula, like they really kept that same game mode for quite a while. They did eventually add to it. You had other characters. You had like Engine, which is one of my favorite Crash ones. I really am sad that we never got Tiny Tiger, like that one. Thinking back to like Crash Bash, which is still maybe my favorite Crash game in existence. I think of playing as him. I think of just him as a character in the old models of Tiny. And it's very sad that we don't get to actually, get that part. It's also it's a good thing and a bad thing that we got the return of Spyro. And again, massive props to that. Like that was something kind of legendary. So good on them. The negative is we got it for this game. And that, again, like who really played this game and who really played it for Spyro. And thirdly, that is how we ended this game. You ended the game called Crash Team, not on purpose, but the game called Crash Team Rumble had 3 full-length seasons that had stuff and things, right? It had items, new kind of weapons to use, new maps, new modes, new characters. It had all the stuff you'd imagine for a live service, but you ended that on season 3, months, and you ended it on a different game, a literal different game franchise. You brought in characters, which is fine. I mean, they're great characters, and is it fun to run around as Spyro? Yeah, it's really cool. It's really almost surreal considering Spyro has been very neglected, from Toys for Bob, from Activision, from now Microsoft. It's been very neglected. So to see him back is phenomenal. It's just, to me, like, I'll never not remember that. I'll never not think about that the way you end this game is with characters. And again, like Tiny is being one of my favorites, like not getting him, but then also getting, getting these characters that are not even part of that universe. That's disappointing. But again, like the game, I think legitimately works. Now, okay, let's go. I mean, I think, thrown in some positives and negatives as this video has gone. Overwhelmingly, the game is a blast, and the game is fun, and all the characters, in my experience, playing as all of them, you can get really good. Like, I got good at pretty much every single, from Entropy to Cat-Bat to Coco to all of them. I got really good. So I think it's a blast to play, whether you're talking to people, whether you're not. It can get tense. There can be close matches. There is a weirdly good amount of depth to the game. They use like gem pads, and they really bring like Crash lore. Like, what do you collect? You collect Wumpa Fruit. You sometimes get the gems, and it's like, well, how do we work that all in? Let's have like map specific things that'll happen, right? So that'll help your team, or maybe it'll hurt the other team. Again, the depth is surprisingly there, and it's surprisingly very, very strong. However, let's get to a little bit more of, okay, well, the game died 9 months in, right? Sadly, like I said, now the game's going to live on, and maybe we can do this video down the line when they shut the servers off, which I imagine maybe give it like a year, and I bet you that happens. But for now, the game is operational. The game, I assume, will be played by some people, but I think very little. But the support, right? So the game's not dead, but the game has been abandoned, and it's basic, like it's one step away, kind of like where we're at for Friday the 13th. Although Friday the 13th was delisted, right? So you can't get Friday the 13th anymore, but it's still operational. You can still play it, but the servers aren't taken down until the end of this year. So that's like the actual, death date. Crash, somewhat similar, right? I think overwhelmingly kind of dead, and you could argue the game was never really alive, but the death date is still, to be determined. Okay, the number one thing in terms of that negative really is the player base. Now, again, I don't really blame anyone. If you pitch me the idea of a Crash live service game, I'm asking you, are you for real? Are you serious? Because you think of Crash in his, 25-plus year history, and has that ever been a thing? And does it even make sense to do something like that? Now, again, the platforming, the fighting, there's a lot of things that actually transferred pretty well from a standard Crash game to Team Rumble. But the fans did not come. And I have always said this. I don't know how many people talk about like the very early days of Team Rumble, but I made it a point to say it those first couple days when I reviewed the game. I said, I love it. It's all good. There's nobody playing it. I remember day one of this game, there were bots and it's 4v4. You're not talking 20 players. You're not talking 50. You're not talking, say, Battlefield with 32 versus 32. You don't have 64 players in this small map. You're looking for 8. In fact, you're one of them. So you're only looking for 7 people. Now, you could say, Alex, you're making a big deal. It really was kind of a big deal. There were multiple matches, day 1, day 2, day 3, over the weekend, where there were not full lobbies. Now, does that mean necessarily that there were less than 8 people playing? No, it actually doesn't mean that. It's just I found it at times very difficult to find full matches, and it never really rebounded. Like, yes, some days were going to be better than others, but from day 1, there were bots populating it. And bots immediately meant, by the way, if you had a bot on your team, it meant an automatic loss. If you had a bot on the other team, it meant an automatic win. If you were good enough, I suppose, but once like it only was the diehards, that's literally how it was. If you didn't have full matches, whoever had the bots, they were the weak link because you just, you're not going to have that pick-me-up. So that's what I found as time went on. As June went, I think it came out late June, so as June finished, let's say, right? July, August. Now you added engine and you started, picking stuff up, I think, around August. But overall, that issue continued. There just was not, and you could sense it, and you could see it online, and you could see it from people watching other people streaming the game, right? Like Twitch numbers, and those numbers don't mean everything. In fact, when we talk about games on this channel, sometimes we'll bring that up. It doesn't always mean everything, but for a game like this, I mean, it certainly I think would have helped, and I think it just continued to build that narrative that nobody really cared. There was a handful, maybe 10 channels on YouTube that talked about this game, that played this game. It just never picked up. And again, I find it very hard to blame any person, fan or not fan, console owner that is into buying games that didn't buy this game. I'd find it very hard to blame any of them because it's not really their fault. This is what happens, sadly, when you do this. And again, to me, for my own personal bias and just experience, this is one of the most unique kind of situations I think we've ever seen, where it's a game that shouldn't work. Maybe to some people you could literally say does not work, right? But this is a franchise that has never done this before. You randomly take it this direction. Nobody supports it. And when I say nobody, I mean, honestly, maybe less than 50, 100,000 people, which is extremely low. Spyro Reignited Trilogy, the remaster or remake collection, whatever you want to call it, it sold 10 million units. I'm sure Crash 4, it's about time. I don't remember the numbers, but I'm positive that game sold a couple million. I would bet you whatever you want that this game did not sell 1 million. And which is funny because the whole point of this game was to attract more people of a different kind of mindset and different genre and to have the game last, well, like live service games do, forever. And obviously that didn't happen. It didn't even make it a year. Now again, like as time went on, that's not necessarily, I'm not going to harp on or like, use them as a punching bag all that much. Again, I have great respect for them, for what they did for Crash and Spyro. I'll have not just, I guess, respect, but gratitude that they actually did that. That took a very talented team, and you easily could have messed that up. And in my opinion, I know people have some split thoughts on It's About Time. I really liked it, and I think it's a great Crash game, and they brought it back in the first place, right? So I think they've done an amazing service to the fandom. They definitely, I don't even know if this was their choice, to be honest. We don't know that either, right? Like, did Activision tell them, hey, we want you to continue Crash, but you got to make it a live service? And then they're thinking, how in God's name are we going to do that? And they crafted one of the weirdest, one of the hardest to explain games that you possibly could have. And I think the game is actually really fun. I haven't played it in actually a little while. I definitely do want to play it now that the final update. So it's done. I mean, as of yesterday, again, not necessarily dead, but definitely abandoned and not coming back to. And again, like I don't blame them. I doubt there's many people still playing it in the first place, but it'll be a game that I support in some degree until it's literally turned off. And I'll always, I don't want to say appreciate it, right? That's a little tricky. Do I appreciate the game? Well, I don't really think we needed it. I mean, I like the game, borderline love the game, and that's very weird for someone like me to say, but I don't know if I appreciate like their service with this game, because I think ultimately, again, does things change if they make a Crash 5 or if they make a Spyro 4, right? Like, does that have them not leave Activision? Honestly, it's possible. They might have wanted to kind of go back to the drawing board and something a little bit smaller and something a little bit more their own. I'm just making this up, instead of following what they're being told. They easily could have been told to do something like this, and after this is done, they say, well, we told you. Like, we probably could have done better with a Spyro 4. And they're like, well, we could just maybe do it on our own. We have to still work with you, but we can kind of break ourselves, apart from you. Maybe, again, that's speculation. Maybe that happened, maybe that didn't happen, but I could see it. So I do think, actually, things may have changed quite dramatically if they stayed and if they didn't do this. But, hey, it's the way it happened, and I'll like it for what it is. But again, I just don't think it's something that needed to have happened, should have happened, and for something that really not a lot of people played, for something that absolutely nobody on planet Earth asked for a game like this, they actually did a really good job. Like, I definitely want to shout out that anybody who worked on that game, I do think did phenomenal, and I'm sorry that it didn't hit, but I do like it for what it is. I really like this game. So hopefully this is not the end for, I never really thought that. I've never actually thought that or said that. I do not want this to be the end of Crash. I haven't really processed if it is the end of Crash. I highly doubt it is. I think somebody or maybe even them will continue it down the line. So I don't think this is goodbye. If it is, I would think I'd be a little bit more fiery, because that would actually be unacceptable. But hey, it's sad to see this game go. Didn't even make it a year, but I enjoyed it when it was out. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.